Welcome back to Rogue Talk on Optimal Play. I'm Brandon,
I'm Steven.
and we're back to talk through the leveled up cards that came in the Winifred Habbamock Investigator starter deck for Arkham Horror, the card game. That continues to be a major mouthful to say the name of one of these products. How are you today, Steven?
Pretty good. Other than like the apocalypse has come to LA even more than it was, I think, in our last video.
Oh, man, yeah, the sun is a little less orange where I am, but the smoke has like settled down and is now actually it looks hazy just walking around outside, and I can feel it when I breathe. It's not fun. Oh, man, yeah. Hopefully, I don't know. We're right at what is typically like the start of fire season in California. I keep being like, I hope it'll end soon, but I'm not sure it's going to.
Yeah, it's like when you advance the agenda on the first turn in Essex. It's like, you don't typically like get to the second agenda on the first turn, but like it happened.
Here we are. Yeah. Oh God. Well, I'm excited to say that as of the time this video is going up, our gameplay video of Tellstones is finally up, and that I'm allowed to say now because I was under NDA for the contents of that game, that game rules. I love Tellstones. It is a 2-player head-to-head. It's a memory game, but it plays more like poker. It's a memory game where you're bluffing about what you remember. It also makes a super great like bar game because it is waterproof. It just has heavy duty plastic pieces and it's like 4 inches in size. And so our video, we just played it as a drinking game. that was the first time that we've just flat out said like we are transforming this game into a drinking game, and that's how we're playing it on video. So we had a blast. So yeah, if you are watching this and haven't checked that out, please do. It was a really good time.
So with like memory and bluffing, did it remind you of Netrunner at all? That sort of sounds Netrunner.
That's a good question, but no, I wouldn't say it reminded me of Netrunner. Yeah, it's a tricky game to describe. It's really the whole game is taking turns trying to throw off each other's memories by like swapping tiles around and stuff as you're trying to remember where they are, and then challenging each other to name them. But you can also claim that you know them, and it's up to your opponent to figure out whether you to force you to name them to prove it, in which case you can win, or to call your bluff. And yeah, so I don't know, it's quite unique and interesting. It's a game that I read the rulebook and was like, oh, it's just a memory game. Like I found the rulebook really disappointing, and then as soon as I actually sat down and played it, I was like, all I could think about for the next few weeks was like, how much more can I play this? It's so much fun. So anyway, yeah, I always point wrong. There we go, right up there. I'm putting a link to it. So
pretty sure it's gonna be.
It's right above Steven's head. Yeah,
yeah, there. Yeah. I think I got it.
Perfect. Yeah. So there's a link up there. Check that out, and then come back and finish this video or watch it after. We don't want you to miss this. So in Winnie's deck, she seems like the ultimate skill investigator, and there was like 1.5 new skills. It was like a new skill and a level 0 tweak of an existing skill.
Yeah, I think if you want to be charitable, you could say that Arkham is teaching new players to take bad cards and use them as skill cards.
Yeah, if you want to be charitable. So I'm hoping that we get some good skills in here, because I think that is something that I came out really feeling like that was a even though Winnie herself is not disappointing, I think she's awesome. I thought that the deck and the new cards that they chose to put in the pack with Winnie so far have kind of been a little confusing. So I'm hoping for some good skill cards here. Why don't you read us our first card? I'm sure it's a skill card.
No, it is Liquid Courage level 1. Costs 1, 2 will icons, illicit item, uses 4 supplies, and as an action, spend a supply, choose an investigator location to heal 1 horror. Then that investigator tests will 2. If the test succeeds, they draw 1 card. If the test fails, they heal 1 additional horror and discard 1 card at random from their hand. So this...
okay, this is weird. They heal a horror no matter what. Then they take a test. If they succeed, they draw a card. But if they fail, they heal more horror. and discard a card.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've almost ever seen a potentially like wanting to fail a test to get the benefit of failing it, right?
Well, it does speak to the problem with the original Liquid Courage, which was always that rogues were really bad at will tests. So like it
Mhm.
was this rogue card that you would only use to heal other people's horror. And so yeah, it was weird. Um, this seems
And Winnie's
better.
willpower is 1, right? So she's
Yeah.
gonna not want to drink this all that often, unless she's
Well,
feeling good
unless she
about
has two
failing.
horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like it seems like now they've kind of split it where before it was like you almost only wanted to use it on people other than the rogue that took it.
Yeah.
Now it's like the rogue can use it on themselves to heal 2 horror, and you lose a card, but that's not too bad to heal 2 horror. Or you can use it on other people, and they might draw a card and heal 1.
Yeah. Yeah. And sure, you might be discarding some cards. You can try to keep your hand empty to avoid that. But the upside of this, it costs 1, it takes up no slot, and it can heal as much as 8 horror with its 4 supplies. Like that seems pretty good.
And I mean, Winnie is going to be drawing a lot of cards. Like
Mhm.
as long as you don't discard. I mean, discarding your opportunist maybe sucks, but maybe if you get a second one, it's okay. In general, I feel like two horror and losing 1 card would be totally fine.
Yeah, and this is when he brings up all these basic rules questions that don't come up very often. When do if she what am I trying to say? Uh so I know that I think that she draws her card from her power after the test. But when does something like Opportunist get returned to your hand? I guess I'm trying to figure out whether Opportunist, if you use it on the Liquid Courage test, will
There's
be
no
back
way
in your
because
hand and
there's no
eligible
way
to
because
discard.
you only get it back if you succeed by 2, and you only discard if you fail. So there's no way where you succeed
Oh,
by 2 and
no
also
way Opportunist would be returned to your hand and then can be discarded. Fair point. Yeah. Um. Okay. Cool.
yeah.
Uh. Next is a level 2 version of the new gun that was introduced in her deck, the Mauser C96. This is a 3-cost asset that is an item, weapon, firearm, illicit. It uses 5 ammo, and it says, as an action, exhaust Mauser C96 and spend 1 ammo to fight. You get +2 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, either ready Mauser C96 or gain 1 resource. If you succeed by 4 or more, do both. Cool. Tony is even happier about this, right? Because he starts with that 5 combat, so his odds of passing by 4 or more are pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and I think Winnie, if she contributes enough skill cards, she can totally get to
Mhm.
succeed by 4 too.
Yeah, and doing both here is not as good as like leveled up, or is not always as good as like it is for leveled up pickpocketing, where draw a card and gain a resource is almost always both things you want to do. Sometimes getting to ready the gun is not like doesn't matter, right? If there's nothing else to shoot or it's your last action. Um, but yeah, this seems great. It seems fun. I think this is the first time we've been rewarded for succeeding by 4 or more. That's a huge hurdle, but I think we've got some characters who can do it.
I mean, there are cards that don't say 4 or more, but they can take up to 4, like shotgun.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is the first one that explicitly mentions 4. Um, agree with you though that because maybe only half the turns do you care about readying the gun, it's really only sometimes better than the original. I think it
Yeah.
also costs 1 less.
Yeah, it costs 1 less
So
resource. I think it uses 1 more
I
ammo,
think
or
the old one had a
was it
lot of
5
ammo.
ammo? Okay,
Yeah,
that could
so
be. And then it has +1 combat on the attacks, which is just great to have a +2 combat on a gun, and it makes you more likely to pass by these thresholds.
yeah, and honestly, that might be the biggest thing, just getting +1 more attack on 5 different
Mhm.
shots, maybe even more if you're reloading this thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, rogues have swift reload, which I think is
Yeah.
the best extra ammo card.
Yep,
Like by a significant margin, that card is great.
and they have 2 different cards that can take 2 different characters that can take extra ammo too, so
True. Yep. Or the Venturer to put more ammo in it. Although that's probably not how you're spending your ally slot.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, rogues have some good allies now.
Um, okay, every time I flip to the next card and it's not a skill card, I'm like, what are you doing? But what's next?
All right, daring maneuver, 0 cost level 2 event. It's a gambit, fast. Played when you would succeed at a skill test. You get +3 skill value for this test. Draw 1 card. So I think the old one gave +2.
It gave
Um,
+2 and did not have a card draw, yeah.
yeah. So the
I think
plus,
did the previous one still cost 0 resources to play? I think it did cost 0.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Um, so there's only a few cards that we've seen so far that care about succeeding by more than 2. We just looked at one of
Mhm.
them. But there's an awful lot of cards that just care about succeeding by 2. Drawing a card is nice, but other than that, it seems a little marginal.
Yeah, I still don't think that this card is great, but I do think it goes into very specific decks, like decks building around shotgun or sawed-off shotgun, right? When you're trying to get that 6 damage attack +3 to a passing test is exactly how you get there. And then the draw card is nice. It means that you can, unlike the previous one, if you don't see a use for this based on like the assets you have on the table, you can just throw it into a test you pass to cycle it, right? Just
Mhm.
draw a card in its place. I think that having that option is actually kind of a big improvement to the card because it's very situational.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right, moving right along. Another level 2 event. This one is Cheap Shot level 2. It is it's a 2 resource cost trick that says fight. Add your agility value to your skill value for this attack. If you succeed by 1 or more, automatically evade the attacked enemy. If you succeed by 3 or more, return Cheap Shot to your hand at the end of your turn. Oh, okay. So this bumped down the threshold to get the automatic evade, and then it added the succeed by 3 to return it to your hand at the end of your turn. It reminds me of Derringer, where it like brought down the original threshold to 1 and added a 3 tier. Hmm. I'm not a fan of Cheap Shot. Are we a fan of this one?
So the one thing I can think of is that like Rita could use this every turn to attack, evade, do an extra damage. So you're like doing 2 damage and an evade every turn. The only thing is, if you're going to be spending that much money in Rita, I would probably rather be trying to find some way to cycle Will to Survive every turn or something rather than this every turn.
Can Rita for
Um,
sure take this? What level range of tricks can she take?
I'm not 100% sure, but I
Yeah,
feel
me
like she
neither.
can
It might be tricks.
probably.
It might be tricks 0 to 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's hard to remember those deck building details at this point when there's
Yeah.
35 investigators or however many.
So I think like there's probably a fun Rita deck that like uses the stupid survivor make lots of money by raising difficulty, drawing thin.
Oh, yes, yeah.
There's probably like a fun Rita deck that like uses drawing thin to make money and then like cheap shots every turn. Um, is it as good as just being based around will to survive or using a bow instead of this fight event?
Yeah.
Probably not, but it's kind of fun.
I mean, yeah, it still comes down to doing 1 damage because this is a basic, unmodified fight, and then possibly automatically evading the attacked enemy for 2 resources, and it's not like it's fast or anything. Like that's still
Yeah.
not that exciting. The ability to do it turn after turn for 2 resources a pop still doesn't terribly excite me.
Yeah, and that's why, like, to me, the only thing I was thinking about was Rita because she's doing 2 damage with it instead.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like it's expensive enough that there's probably more efficient things she could be doing.
I've been playing a lot of the Forgotten Age lately because, well, I'm wrapping up the campaigns that I started before the return box came out. Do you think that this puts 2 resources on the Harbinger of Volusia to get her to go away faster if you fight and evade her
Oh,
in
yeah,
one
I think so.
action? This
Yeah,
is a doubly efficient way to like swat her away and just get her to leave?
yeah.
Like, okay, okay,
Mhm.
you can consider it for that. What's next?
Uh, oh, it could also if you're playing like solo Tony or something, and you just want a way to evade bosses without requiring you to have be good at evading. Maybe that's another use for it.
Mm, that's true. I guess the rare rogue that doesn't have high agility,
Mhm.
this is a way to like evade because it's kind of you can look at it the other way. It's adding their agility to a fight, but it's also kind of adding their combat skill to an evade.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, pretty
Good
edge
point.
case.
Yeah.
So the next one is Slip Away level 2, 2-cost event, also a trick, also probably can be played in Rita. Evade, add your book to your skill value for this evade. If you succeed by 1 or more and the enemy is non-elite, it does not ready during the next upkeep. If you succeed by 3 or more, return Slip Away to your hand at the end of your turn.
Okay, I think I said last time that I think Slip Away is better than Cheap Shot, and I think level 2 Slip Away is better than level 2 uh, Cheap Shot, just because evading an enemy for 2 turns is solid. And then within 1 card, the opportunity to do that multiple times. You're not going to do it every turn. You would do it every other turn or as needed on future enemies. I think this is really interesting.
Yeah, I think that this sort of enables a style that, I mean, there's probably some other cards like Stealth level 2 that enable this, but where you really leave a lot of enemies lying around. Um, so, if you evade an enemy for 2 turns and you're pretty mobile and you're pretty good at investigating, you should be able to just never come back for that enemy.
Yeah.
So characters like Wendy can take this. She has pretty good book and agility. Safina has good book and agility. Or actually, no, Safina doesn't. But she has good agility, so it still adds up to 6. Jenny, it adds up to 6. So there's a number of characters where it adds up to at least 6. Wendy, I think it's 7. So yeah, I think that it enables an interesting play style.
Yeah, and I think that this, because of the way it has the potential to return to your hand for multiple uses, it's probably a one-off, especially because you're spending the XP on it, right? Like, one is ideally enough. Like, the second copy, if you're returning the first one to your hand, the second copy is not that good.
I guess we're forgetting maybe the most obvious one of Finn, because his add up to 8, and it's free.
Yes.
It's a free action. So
he can play because he gets an evade every turn. He can use this with his bonus action. Still costs 2 resources, but
you could play Milan, or he can take Drawing Finn. He has a couple different cards that can make him a lot of money.
That can help him with that. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is really interesting for Finn.
Burglary is also something he could do for money.
Yeah. It's always funny to me when 2 cards that are like symmetrical with each other, like this is so much like Cheap Shot in so many ways, and one of them is just quite a lot better than the other. That's the way I see these two. Hey, a skill card at last.
Yes.
Level 2 manual dexterity. This is a rogue skill card. We talked about this in the Jacqueline pack, where Guts got a Mystic upgrade version, right? This looks really similar. It has 3 agility pips. It's innate and developed, and says max 1 committed per test. If this test is successful, draw 1 card. 2 cards instead if it succeeds by 2 or more. Well, I'm happy there's a skill in the pack finally.
I think it's pretty solid. I mean, Winifred, if she uses this and Opportunist, she's actually drawing 3 cards and probably blowing a test out of the water, because her agility's already, it'll be at 9, I think, with those 2. So
at that point, she's drawing 2 from this, 1 from her ability, and returning Opportunist to her hand. It's almost like plus 4 cards.
Yeah, well, you had to commit, but yeah, like if you think about it as a fast draw 3, like that's really good.
It's true. It has to be on an agility test, which are niche. Compared,
but I assume Winifred is probably going to be evading enemies fairly often. Like if you're playing a 5 agility, I think so. You're going to want to do some evades.
It's fun, and this just goes to my being a little confused by what what we're supposed to want Winnie to do. Is like, yes, has some of the best evasion in the game with that high agility, but also got the best rogue weapon. Like, what's she? I don't know. Yeah, I think the same with Guts. I think it's super cool to get these upgrades that change the card, like to a class card, or kind of explore the differences between the classes. So I like this for that, but I kind of wish that it had done something a little more roguish. Like maybe I wish that Guts would heal horror and this one would give you resources, or kind of like feel a little more specialized rather than all of them just tacking on one pip. I'm assuming that all of them, now that we've seen two, I'm assuming that all of them do the same thing, which is +1 pip and +1 card if you succeed by a lot. So I wish that they were more just exciting, but yeah, I think it's a good card. I think it's a worthwhile place, especially when you get up to where like, okay, you've bought kind of the basics, the staples that you really needed to spend your XP on. Then this is a good place to put a couple XP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the neutral skill cards, I don't think they ever stopped being good. They just got a little boring. So they're still a little boring in their upgraded version.
Yeah, that's true. Give us the next card.
Okay, Lucky Cigarette Case, level 3. Still costs 2. 2 will icons. It's an item and charm. After you succeeded a skill test by 1 or more, exhaust Lucky Cigarette Case. Search the top X cards of your deck for a card, draw it, and shuffle the remaining cards in your deck. X is the amount you succeeded by.
Holy shit. This seems great.
Yeah, I think it's the reverse of the upgraded Rabbit's Foot, which also let you search. But I think this is better because it's easier to control succeeding by like 5 than it is to fail by 5 on purpose, you know?
Yeah, is that, I don't know that I ever played the upgraded Rabbit's Foot. It's search based on how much you failed by? Is that how that works?
Oh, again, I haven't played it either.
Yeah. Oh, but so it's, what am I saying? When you're comparing like searching to draw a card, searching even 2 cards is way better because of the weakness system in this game, right? It I guess it doesn't guarantee that you won't draw a weakness, because if you're searching 2, both of the cards on top could be a weakness, but it basically lets you draw with safety from weaknesses, which lets you do things like feel good about drawing a card on the last action of your turn, whereas if you're about to draw a Chronophobia or something, so that's often a bad idea.
Yep.
Yeah, and then this threshold is down to succeed by 1 or more, which kind of would have to be that way to work with the whole X search thing. But yeah, I think this is awesome. I think that this should be a pretty high priority upgrade if you're using your accessory slot for a cigarette case.
Yeah, I think especially like you could use your first XP on a really good card, and then use your second XP on this to help you find that really good card. So, you know, this might be in the sort of 8 to 10 XPs is when you buy this, maybe.
Yeah, good point. I guess this card is also better the better the rest of your deck is. Maybe it's not the first.
Especially like in that early like scenario 2 to 4-ish, when you've got a few really good cards and then a lot of mediocre cards. That's when this card is
find the good ones. Yeah, good point.
Like by scenario 8, hopefully all of your cards are awesome.
Yeah, this, I love it. I'll be buying it. And a new talent, Sharpshooter, level 3. It's a 2-cost rogue asset that says, as a reaction, when you use a fight ability on a firearm asset, exhaust Sharpshooter to choose one or both. This attack uses agility instead of combat. All modifiers to your combat for this attack modify your agility instead. Or use the attacked enemy's evade value for this attack instead of their fight value. Wow. So a lot of these slotless talents land at like, okay, it's basically a +2. This is that's kind of also where this is, I think, a lot of the time, right?
That's true. Yeah, on Winifred, this is also going to be a +2. And as would it be for Sabina, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right, +2 for the shift in base stats on some investigators. Also, a lot of the time, if you're choosing whether to use the enemy's evade value instead of fight, like that's going to get you +1 or 2. There's a lot of opportunities for this to kind of fall into that same range, but you could set up to get a lot more than that, right? Like if you were playing Lola Santiago buffing your agility or something, all of a sudden that's another +1 to all of your attacks. And I think this is great.
So
Go ahead.
There's one downside, which is it only works on firearms. So you can't. Not good if you're going to do a mix of firearms and switchblades, and maybe you punch occasionally for that one
Yeah.
HP at the end. You have to kind of go all in on firearms. So Mauser alone is probably not enough to be worth playing this. You're probably all playing the 45 or the Tommy gun. Like, you need a few.
Yeah, agreed. But at this point, rogues have a decent, like you just named a couple other options. I guess the 45 is out of class, so only some can take it. But
no, I meant the 45 Thompson. Sorry.
Oh, are they both 45 automatic and 45
Yeah.
Thompson? Yeah, they're the same number. Oh, that's annoying. Huh. Yeah, and then this is support for if you're going for a gun heavy build and kind of the top of your upgrade path is the sawed-off shotgun. This is great support for that, right?
Yep.
And what this does, I'm thinking this through, it makes it so I guess not only do like plus if you're getting plus combat from Lonnie Ritter, it converts that to agility, but it also converts the plus combat on the gun itself. You know, if it gives you +2 combat on the attack, like we saw on the Mauser, that becomes plus agility. So it's just all upside. Yeah, I think that with like sawed-off shotgun, you could get up to huge amounts with this.
How does this work with skill cards? Can you then contribute both fist and foot skill cards?
I don't think you could put combat skill cards in because it is no longer a combat test, even though it says all modifiers modify it instead. I don't think that includes like combat hits.
Okay.
That's my read on this. I'm sure someone will explain to us in the comments if we're wrong, but that's my take.
And then off the top of my head, I can't think of any enemies where I want to do the evade value thing instead.
I mean, there are plenty of like, and again, TFA is just what's in my head lately, but like the Strangleweed Vine, you know, the big like 6 hit point thing that swallows your melee weapon, or it's the one that punishes you if you don't have a pocket knife in the Forgotten Age. That has, I think, like 4 combat, 1 evade, something like that. I don't know. There are definitely plenty of enemies that are like a 4 fight, 2 evade, 3 fight, 1 evade, that kind of thing. I think even like Acolyte is 3 fight, 1 evade. So
yeah, but it's only a 2 difference. Most of the time, it's going to be both option is going to be the same thing.
Good point. Yeah, it depends. It depends on your investigator's stats. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're probably not taking this unless your evade is too higher than your fight. Is my guess.
I don't know. You might be taking this as Tony just because he uses a bunch of firearms and can target the then use the evade value on enemies.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to look at more evade values to see whether that'd be worth it, Tony.
Yeah, it's the like fight to evade ratio on enemies is not something that the game has made us think that much about. So they're not like really strong in my mind. But I could see this on Tony largely if he's like obviously using a lot of firearms and trying to succeed by a lot. Like he's using a lot of these cards we've seen that reward him for succeeding by a lot, because this will help him kind of overkill. He already has a high combat, stat, so he doesn't have trouble hitting that much. Like, I don't know if he needs to spend 3 XP on this just to land his hits. I see this as more like he spends 3 XP on this so that he can succeed by a lot more if he's trying to do that. Cool.
Next card is the level 3 version of Pilfer. Still costs 4. It's a trick. Investigate. This investigation uses agility instead of book. If you succeed, discover 2 additional clues. If you succeed by 2 or more, return Pilfer to your hand at the end of your turn. Ooh. So this requires a lot of money.
Yeah, I think this is a pass for me. I don't see myself playing this several times per game. It's too expensive for that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, well, there is always our good friend Preston. He could maybe do it. Maybe
it's using all of his inheritance money to play it though, so he's not boosting his agility stat to pass the test with that money.
Yeah, so it's still you still wouldn't want to do it early in the game. You'd want to build up your money, and then you would have to have other ways to boost it in addition to your inheritance from money.
Yeah.
So Yeah, not really a high priority because of how expensive it is. I feel like if they had reduced the cost to like 3, this would be way better. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if that would be enough, but yes, I would have much rather spent XP to reduce the cost of pilfer than to get this return to your hand benefit.
yeah,
And it doesn't even have it only has one intellect and one agility icon, so it's not like, okay, great, I'll return to my hand and use it as a skill card. It's not
yeah.
that much value from that either. Yeah, no, I don't like it. So let's move on to level 3 Backstab. It's a
Ooh,
3 cost rogue event that says fight. This attack uses agility instead of combat. This attack deals +2 damage. If you succeed by 2 or more, return Backstab to your hand at the end of the turn. This is has the same problem of being expensive resource wise, but I think this is extremely interesting. Where are
yeah,
you at on this?
yeah. I mean, I think definitely, as I was just saying, like 3 is a lot more palatable than 4.
Mhm.
Um, uh, yeah,
And dealing +2 damage, 3 damage is a great number. Like weapons tends to do 2 a lot of the time, and so but a lot of enemies have 3 hit points. So there are a lot of opportunities for 3 damage to be just the amount that you want.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, odd numbered enemies have always been something that we've looked for help with dealing with, both 3 hit point and 5 hit point. Because 5 hit point,
Mhm.
you the mouser and then do this. So
It's why I love Garrote Wire too, because it lets you
yeah.
get that odd damage in as a freebie.
So yeah, I think it's pretty solid. Definitely would look at this in uh, Jenny, Safina. Yeah, I think Safina would be a really good one because she's obviously likely to find this.
Mhm.
She can recycle like hot streaks to help get the money for it. So I think it's a solid boost for her.
This is an upgraded version, obviously, of I think a level 0 card.
Yep.
Did its resource cost go up? I
No,
think the level 0 really it cost 3.
yeah, it was backstab was 3 and sneak attack was 2.
Oh, okay. I had 2 in my head for backstab, but um, all
One
right.
One thing is this was always the level 0 one was always a classic Wendy card. This one is out of Wendy's range, so that's a little sad.
Good point. Yeah. So
But
yeah,
I
I
guess
think it's
she
super interesting. I'm I'm overall, I don't know how many more of these we'll see. I, I'm not overwhelmed by this whole succeed by 2 or more, return the event to your hand thing. That now I think we've seen 4 cards with this.
Mhm,
It's just I don't know. I guess it's a nice to have on like a card in your deck. It's not
mhm.
something that you want to throw all these into your deck because you just won't be able to afford them.
Yeah, and I mean the character that could maybe afford them in Preston does not really care about like, oh, I'm going to use my 1 agility instead of my 1 fight, like
Yeah, right.
so there's a whole cycle of cards like Intel Report that just
Mhm.
automatically succeed that suits him way better than like
Yeah.
agility instead of this thing. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a bummer to me, I think, to get we just got 4 different cards. It's what? Cheap Shot, Slip Away, Pilfer, and now Backstab, and maybe even more. There's we've got a handful left to go through in this pack. And I'm looking at them like, so this is 8 cards in this pack that I want maybe one of in my deck, and probably not more than one copy of one of these, and that's it. So it's a little bit like, well, so one of these is gonna be good, and the rest I'm not gonna play very much, or at least they're not going to get a lot of play because they are very close to mutually exclusive as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. And also, they all have no synergy with double or nothing because you can't return 2 copies of the same card to your hand. Like,
Oh, well, they like double or nothing can still double. Like, wouldn't double or nothing pilfer give you 6 clues?
but that's true of the level 0 version too. So like, there's no
Oh,
extra from
oh,
this
I
one.
see what you're saying because the leveled up version of this has no additional combo with double or nothing. Good point. Yep. Um, all right then. Hey, in the pack that I was expecting so many skills, we're up to our second one.
All right, Copycat, level 3 skill. I don't believe there's any other versions of this.
Mm-mm.
Uh, 1 wild icon to Gambit. After you commit Copycat to a skill test, search the discard pile of another investigator for a skill that fits this test and commit it. After this test ends, place that card on the bottom of its owner's deck. Ooh.
Love it. I think that the rogue thing of playing with other people's cards, kind of whether they like it or not, like it's not like teamwork where it's they choose something to give you. It's you just take it. I think that's super fun. I have no idea if this is any good. It probably is fine because it's a wild plus another skill card.
I think it's pretty good. And it actually doesn't, for the most part, it doesn't mess with other people. It actually puts the card back in their deck, which they'll probably like, if you're putting an extra skill card back in their deck.
As long as they're not like a survivor planning to dig it back out. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to me, this just makes the rogue mystic pairing with using Seal the Elder Sign like even more bonkers. So like now you get to use that Elder Sign twice. Both times that you use it, Winifred gets to take all of her skill cards back. That just seems like a super crazy thing where like you're going to have now several insane power turns.
Yep.
And in fact, wait a second. So can Winifred just use Seal the Elder Sign every single turn because she gets Copycat back every time? Like, is that how that works?
No, because this puts that card on the bottom of the owner's deck, which is probably why that's here. I don't think that that's there to be like a great, they're one more card away from running out of cards. I don't think that that's meant to be a benefit. I think it's to control the abuse of Copycat.
Because that would just completely break the game. Like,
yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's what was the name of it's was it Daredevil, the skill card that we got a level 0 version of that flips through your deck for another rogue card and commits it. So between that and Copycat, you can have this like chain of events, chain of cards that all get poured into this test, and then when he passes by a million and gets one back, and that's super fun.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because it really affects the deck building of the other characters. Like you're going to want to, ideally, you'll want everyone to have a good number of skill cards so that if you draw this early or if Daredevil hits this early, like what you wouldn't want is that other people only have a couple skill cards. And so Daredevil hits this early, but no one has any skills in their discard pile yet or something.
Yeah, and that is a good point, that this must find a skill card. So if someone's like, as the card pool has gotten bigger, a lot of decks have started running less and less skills. And so if someone is maybe using plenty of their other cards for their icons, but they aren't skill cards, then you've got nothing to copy. And that's a problem. Cool. I love it. I think this card's awesome.
Definitely.
Oh, we're getting to the real high level stuff. Level 4, Beretta M1918. It's a 4-cost rogue asset. It's a weapon, an item, a firearm, and is illicit. It takes up both hand slots and uses 4 ammo. As an action, exhaust Beretta M1918 and spend 1 ammo. Fight, you get +4 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, either ready Beretta or this attack deals an additional +1 damage. If you succeeded by 4 or more, do both. Cool. This is like a bigger Mauser.
Yeah, and it's, as far as the 3 damage weapons, this one seems like one of the more solid ones, right? It's 4 costs, 4 ammo, can deal a total of 12 damage. It's fairly solid.
Yeah, and you need to succeed by 2 or more to get that 3rd damage, but when it's giving you +4 combat, I would call your odds of succeeding by 2 or more pretty decent, depending on what difficulty you're playing on and that kind of thing. Yeah, I think I love it. I think if you're building your deck with like a swift reload and then around this succeed by a lot archetype, like 2 Mausers and 2 of these, and you are you're a real killing machine.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost, I think we brought this up with Mauser as well, like maybe rogues are getting a little too good at guns.
Yeah.
But at least it does seem like one of the differentiations is that at least they're only giving rogues guns now, whereas they used to have like knives and things. So like it kind of makes sense to me that if rogues were going to be good at one aspect of fighting, it would be like guns, like illegal guns,
Sure. Yeah.
as opposed to like, I feel like if there's a class that should be good at melee, it should be Guardian, because those are supposed to be like the strong ones, the physically strong ones. Whereas rogues are not really supposed to be, in my eyes, like physically strong. They're supposed to be cunning.
Yeah. That's a good point. And it's yeah, it's definitely kind of blur. It's removing the like gun specialization from Guardian. I don't know. I still so I think because Rogue still has like the big money stuff going on. It has stuff like Copycat, like borrowing from your opponents, shuffling off treacheries. It kind of has those interactions with your opponents. I feel like it still has a lot that makes Rogue feel unique. I feel like Guardian is losing that and doesn't have a lot left. It's got like its supporty is kind of the main thing that remains more unique to Guardian, right? Is like taking damage in horror for your friends. And that's fine, but it's not the most compelling thing to be like the distinctive aspect of your class. So I don't know what it is, but I'd love to see Guardians like kind of find a new branch that's like a more unique strength of theirs.
Well, so from what I've seen of Nathaniel, he himself is going to be really unique, though I don't know how many of his cards are going to go in other Guardians.
Sure. Yeah. I guess we'll see when we get there. Anything else on the Beretta? Or are we on to the last card?
No, I think it's just pretty solid if you get up to 4 XP. Probably makes the Thompson level 3 a little bit less desirable. You can just spend 1 more XP and get this. So.
All right, then why don't you give us Chuck Fergus?
All right, Chuck Fergus. I think this is a new character.
Yeah.
Unique 3-cost asset, 5 XP. He's an O'Banion driver, which I believe there was also an O'Banion driver in Return to Dunwich you could get under like very specific circumstances.
In Return to Dunwich, huh? Yeah,
it was like it was the new reward for rescuing Pete Clover. You got it. Like,
interesting.
Later. So.
Oh wait, that was Naomi O'Banion. She's not a driver. She's like the daughter.
Have a car in her card or something like that.
Maybe, yeah, but she's like the gang leader. she's no driver, I don't think.
All right. So Chuck is an ally and a criminal, and as a response, when you play a tactic or trick event, we've seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
It costs Chuck Fergus. Choose 2. That event gains fast. That event costs 2 fewer resources to play. Ooh, that changes our opinion on a lot of the things we just said.
Yes, it's time to pull the stack of cards back out.
Lastly, you get +2 skill value while performing a skill test during the resolution of that event. And he's got 2 health and 2 horror save.
So let's recap those events that I was just panning so hard. Cheap shot is a trick. Slip away is a trick. Pilfer is a trick. And backstab is a tactic. So, wow, this really reframes those 4 cards that until this moment had been quite underwhelming. Now, all of a sudden, they are a deck archetype, right? With this ally.
Totally. I think, most of those are free now. And in addition, Pilfer only costs 2. That's a lot more doable. Backstab only costs 1.
All of a sudden, 2 resources to get 3 clues, and to even have one of your other options to make that fast. That's nuts. That's so good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm probably most of the time taking the last 2 because you're definitely going to want the 2 fewer resources because, otherwise this archetype's not sustainable. And you probably want the +2 skill values because what you don't want is to not succeed by 2 and then the whole value train is, goes off the rails. So the fast, the one thing rogues have generally is lots of actions. So the fast, I'm probably only picking maybe near the end of the game if I have lots of extra resources or something, or if it's a specific turn when I need to pull off a crazy combination.
Right. Yeah. Fast is just valuable. It's niche. Like if you don't have much else to do with your actions, it's not that important. But if you really need to get 4 attacks in on those 2 enemies that are both on you in one turn or something, it can be really clutch.
Yeah, but I do think though that the last two are kind of what you need to sustain this archetype, because like what it really needs to be a deck archetype is it needs to it needs to pay for itself, and it needs to be fairly reliable that you get the card back.
Yeah, although if you do, and I mean to get to level them all up, you're talking a lot of experience. But if you did end up having 2 copies of each in your deck, making them fast and cheaper is pretty good too. Like I would maybe invest XP, and if I was trying to build a deck that went with these tricks and tactics, I would maybe invest in Chuck first before I started leveling those up. So they won't return my hand yet, but if I throw all 8 of them in my deck, you're still going to get to trigger this thing a lot of times, and it's once per turn anyway because it exhausts.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think I would take Chuck first,
Mm-hmm.
and when I'm doing the level 0 ones, I would probably choose fast and cheaper by 2, because you don't need. I think the level 0 ones you don't need to succeed by 2 a lot of the time.
That's right. Yeah, so it's only if it's a real hard test that you want to make sure you pass. Period. Right,
Yeah.
like we've talked about, Pilfer would still be kind of expensive, but even with this discount, you might want to make sure that you pass
Mhm.
by giving yourself the +2. But yeah, agreed. It's like it's the fast and discount that you'd want on the level 0, and then much more likely the discount and plus skill value on the leveled up ones.
Yeah, so pretty.
Okay, that's a really pleasant surprise. I'm actually stoked on those cards now and really want to try them. Whereas I just thought that they were never coming out of the binder until now. Cool. I've got goosebumps. I'm excited. This changes everything.
The only bummer is that he is not takeable by Rita. So the hardcore trick style now will only be in Rogue.
In Rogues. Yeah, that's fine though, because it's like trick is always it's her splash, right? It doesn't need to be the core to her deck.
Yeah, I feel like when there is that keyword, it's always so exciting. Like when Mateo could take you catastrophe. It's like, oh, this is so cool. It's a survivor card a Mystic can take. So it's always kind of exciting when you get to do the splash.
That's true. Yeah. I guess she doesn't get this. She doesn't get a criminal splash, huh? Maybe. Honestly, I could see that as like a permanent someday. Or
well, we have versatile, but it's only level 0.
Right. But I mean, a whole kind of design space for permanent cards that hasn't been explored is like permanent cards that you spend XP on them and then can take a trait because you have that permanent card, right? I don't know if that is in the future of this game at all, but I can see a design space there that would be really interesting and would blow deck building open.
Oh, hold on. The easy solution. Easy peasy. All Rita has to do is versatile for you owe me one to steal Chuck Fergus from the Rogue. No problem.
You've always got these easy peasy solutions that yeah, I'm sure everyone's gonna run out and do. Okay, so that's all the cards in the pack. Where do we stand on the Winnie Investigator deck pack thing?
You know, it honestly feels a little weird to call this a Winnie pack because
Yeah,
it had 2 main themes, and I don't know that Winnie's the right character for either of those themes. Like, it seems like the main themes were really good guns and a new trick and tactic deck that kind of reuses them every turn with a discount from Chuck Fergus.
right.
And like, I mean, she can probably pull off either of those styles, but I don't necessarily know that she's the best investigator for either of those.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it continues to be a little bit of a disconnect, the cards that are in here, from what Winnie actually does, other than there's a lot of the phrase "succeed by X," printed on these cards. I do kind of see now that we've looked at the level up, like, so MJ Newman had said that they were trying to kind of have the level up options included in the pack have kind of two reasonably distinct and clear kind of directions to take the initial deck. With Jacqueline, because it was so much like, well, she has 3 main spells that do kind of the 3 core things and they all upgrade. I didn't see that so clearly. I feel like I do see that clearly here, right? Like it's the guns and combat and converting those to agility tests, which is Winnie's best stat, or it's this event and Chuck to make them cheaper and recurring. thing. So I like that. I think that that's cool, and that makes for like a good. Even though I trashed and stand by trashing her starting deck, I think that that makes kind of a neat experience to be had by just playing with this pack in a way that I like the design of. Yeah, I agree that I think I'm more excited to play these cards with someone other than Winnie for the most part. I don't know though. I think that these
And I
were.
wonder if MJ was. I was going to say, I think MJ might have been trying to stay away from tabooed cards because it really surprises me that Quick Thinking and Double or Nothing are nowhere found here. Because to me, those
Yeah.
are like they're going to be the core Winifred cards in my mind.
True.
Like
Yeah. It actually, I'm a little Yeah, I'm disappointed that they didn't include them, and because people have been kind of clamoring for like a printed version of the tabooed version of cards, this would have been a great chance to provide some of those. So it's a little bit of a bummer that they did not go that direction. But
yeah, the only thing I can imagine is that they didn't want to get into the kind of politics of like, oh, if you print a taboo card, is that now saying that everyone who's not playing with the taboo is wrong? Or like they might have just wanted to like avoid that debate altogether.
sure.
That being said, like at the very least in the upgraded cards, because there's never been an upgraded Double or Nothing or Quick Thinking, I think it would be fair to put the taboo changes on those. And even if you're not playing taboo, you can just say that like, oh, if you want to take advantage of this upgraded version, you have to do limit 1 per test.
Right.
I don't think that would be too mind-blowing for anyone that, oh, like the 0 cost version you can have 2 in a test, but then the upgraded version you can only have 1.
Yeah, that kind of thing, that kind of small tweak to the way cards works happens all the time with alternate versions of a card. Yeah, so the cards in the pack, I've got to say, I was 3/4 of the way through looking at this stack of level up cards. I was kind of thinking I was going to be down on this pack at the end. And then Chuck turned it all around. And all of a sudden, I'm really excited to try this new set of events and the ally that ties them all together. I almost want to sit down and play a couple standalone games so I can just go straight to like a 29 XP deck and try these all out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Safina with about 29 XP is going to be super cool because she'll be able to find those upgraded, like she'll have probably at least 2, if not 3 of those upgraded ones in her opening hand. Now then all she's got to find is Chuck, and you can use the new lucky cigarette case to help you find Chuck. So
yes. Yeah, and that's another card that I'm really excited for, I think.
Yeah, that's maybe the only card in here that I see being in like the majority of upgraded rogue decks. Like everything else is like a pretty specific archetype that'll be cool, but this is the only like just generally useful one.
Yeah, and I don't think I mean I realize there's things like charisma that are kind of exceptions to this. I don't think at 3 XP anything's going to be like an auto include, right? Like I don't think you're going to have the problem that you have with someone like Dr. Milan Christopher, that it's just like you have to throw it in every deck. I think that when it costs 3 XP, people are going to feel more free to not choose to spend their XP on it. But I do think that, yeah, it is probably, without having an encyclopedia of them in my head, it's probably the best rogue accessory, period. And it's just a card that can be thrown into practically any rogue deck and will do good work.
Exactly. Like there will be plenty of decks that don't include it just because they have things that they want to use XP on, but there's like there's almost no deck that wouldn't be better with it.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so all in all, I think a fun box, even if we were baffled at some points along the way. I think I'm really excited to get a lot of these cards to the table.
Yeah, I think the only thing is probably one of the least new player friendly, just because the cards don't necessarily synergize with the investigator that they came with, and vice versa. You really, to me, playing Winifred without Quick Thinking and Double or Nothing is just sad. So
yeah, I definitely. I'm in about the same spot, I think, that I was after Jacqueline, where it's like I'm glad that these exist, but I'm not totally sold on them as a right. Like I think they being sold as a ready to play deck no matter how they're designed is going to kind of imply like this is a great place to start as a new player and just be good to go. But yeah, I don't think that either one has really been a pack that I would expect a new player to really thrive with.
I
Maybe
think
more, maybe more Jacqueline than this, but I don't really think that her like bag manipulation is a super new player friendly mechanic. So I don't know.
I think Jacqueline is definitely more new player friendly. I mean, the issues that I had with that one were more that like, oh, these cards are pretty similar to core set cards,
Mhm.
but like, I don't think that a new player is going to be too bothered by that. And I unlike you, I don't know. I don't find the bag manipulation stuff that confusing. And I think people like breaking the system. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
know the system a little bit to break it. So like to
that's
be excited about breaking it. So like,
that's why I say that. Yeah, it's not like the bag manipulation is overly complex or difficult. It's just that it's like how do you know what value that holds or kind of what how that's helping your team or how you're why are you better off drawing 3 than 1 is the kind of thing that it takes some like some internalizing of the game to really understand, and I don't think that I would dump that onto a brand new player.
to me, it's more like it's just breaking the like being able to break the rules so soon after you got the rules is maybe like
Yeah,
I think that they can figure it out, but that they might not be quite as excited about it as if they had to wait a long time to figure
right, right. Yeah, those of us experienced people are pretty excited about Jacqueline. So uh, okay, well, thank you again for joining me. This was video 4 out of 10 on these investigator starter decks. Um, as of when we're recording this, Barkham Horror is just days away, so I haven't decided yet whether we want to take a break from these and talk through Barkham, or I'm honestly not even sure how. I don't know. I'm not sure how we'll cover Barkham. I definitely want to because I am beyond excited for that product. But I'm not sure. Like we usually talk about player cards, and I think they call it's the Barkham Horror scenario pack, so it might actually not have that many other than investigators. It might not have that much going on in that department. So we'll have to figure out what to do with that.
well, I have seen a lot of great art of dogs playing cards, so we could just stream our dogs playing through Barkham Horror.
Hmm, does sound pretty good. All right, well, keep an eye out for Barkham Horror on Optimal Play in whatever form that takes, as well as 3 more investigators left to discuss in the coming weeks. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We're happy to have you here, and thank you for watching. Until we're back soon, be optimal.